Today, we're talking about Special Forces. I'm going to tell you what they are, what you should use them for, and what your templates should be like. Let's get into it. Starting off with the basics, it should be pretty self-explanatory, but your Special Forces are super special soldiers that are specialized to special environments. Your Marines have bonuses to wet environments, so that being marshes, fighting in rivers, and naval invasions. Your Mountaineers fight better in mountains, and your Paratroopers fight better in air environments. They paradrop into places, they're Paratroopers. Together, these make up 3 of the 4 elements.
Water, earth, fire, air.
Paradox is yet to add in something for the firebenders, but maybe if you just made a template full of flame tanks, that would count. You can see the text for these units in the infantry tab of the research tree down in the bottom section here. There are 4 paths, one for each of the different types of special forces, and then one for your special forces overall. The first tech of each of the unit branches unlocks that type of unit and gives you a free division template that you can use and edit. Each subsequent upgrade adds the same bonus, 5% soft attack plus 5 AUG, and then an extra 5 AUG for the third tech. The bottom branch has 2 exclusive paths that you can choose from, with bonuses and effects that apply across the board. The easiest way to think about it is the top path is for quality, and the bottom path is for quantity. The first tech helps your special forces adapt a little bit better to different weather conditions, while the first tech on the top row increases their defense and organization, while the second tech increases their out of supply time and gives a 50% hot and cold weather bonus, reducing the penalty for fighting in those conditions. The first tech on the bottom row increases your special forces capacity by 5%, which might not sound like much, but after you research this, you can usually go from only being able to field 2 or 3 divisions to maybe a dozen or more. It'll be like 101 Dalmatians with that shit once you start getting a lot of your divisions pumped out to increase your capacity. You won't know what to do with them. The second tech also reduces your overall supply penalty and gives a bonus to the weather, but nowhere near as much as for the top row. Then the final tech gives more supply grace, soft attack, AUG, and even more bonuses to the weather effects. If you take the top row all the way to the end, your special forces will have 4 whole days of supply and have the weather penalty reduced by 75%. When you're fighting against normal units in adverse conditions, this will be like night and day for you. So let's start with the Marines. They're probably the most useful special forces unit that you'll be able to field. Opening up the first tech for them, you can see their stats, but the really juicy thing that we want to look at here is the terrain modifiers. You get a 30% attack bonus in marshlands and rivers, and then a 50% bonus in naval invasions. Normally, units take a 70% penalty to naval invasions, so it's really just reducing the penalties. But if we have a quick look at the engineer company, that also provides a 25% bonus to naval invasions. So if you put those on your Marines, the naval invasion penalty is completely negated. If anything, you get a tiny bonus. The main takeaway from this is you should always, absolutely 100% of the time, add engineers to your Marines. So here's an idea of what your Marine division should look like. The artillery in here is for the soft attack. You can also use rocket artillery too if you have that researched, and that works really well. The engineers are essential, as we went through before. The support artillery and support AA give you a bit more soft attack, piercing, and air attack, which is always handy. The signals company boosts your breakthrough and also gives you that nice initiative bonus, but they're a bit more optional. And then finally, what do we have here? Flame tanks? Well, remember the bonuses that I showed you the engineers get. If you have a look at the engineer company level 2, you are able to create, produce, and assign flame tank companies to your divisions. These also give a bonus to different terrain modifiers. So for example, you get a 10% bonus to amphibious invasions, 10% bonus in rivers, and then 5% bonus in marshes, as well as a variation of other terrain bonuses. So hey, I guess there is a firebender in here after all.
Hello, Zuko here.
The light flame tank has the same bonuses as the medium in terms of what it's going to do to your Marines, and the production cost is only 2.1 for the cheapest you can possibly make. So be sure to add these on and just have a couple of factories chipping away at them throughout the game. You can make your Marine template wider if you like, up to like 40, 42 width, but I prefer to have a few more divisions that are around 30 width. A lot of places that you're naval invading are plains tiles, which are around 90. So 30 fits pretty well into that. So if you go 42, 44, that also does, but it also gives you a bit more flexibility in having more divisions to land on more tiles, which I'll show you that in a bit. Another tip for your Marines is that you can also research the amphibious tractors under the motorized line, which will unlock the amtrac battalion. Once you unlock those and start making them, I will slowly adjust my template, phasing out my standard Marines until it looks something like this. I mean, look at the stats. These things will absolutely slay. Now, how do you use them? Well, aside from attacking across rivers or in marshes, your Marines are best used to land behind enemy lines, opening up a new front and taking away troops from the main attack. Or even, just doing a landing and making that your main attack, whatever floats your boat. When setting up a naval invasion, select your Marines, left click on the naval invasion order, left click on the port which you're going to be departing from. You have to naval invade from a port, and then right click on the destination where you want your Marines to land and hit enter. You can see now if you hover over the action order button, you can see the time that it's going to take your naval invasion to prepare, as well as the amount of convoys that they're going to have to accumulate. You're also going to need at least 50% naval supremacy in any of the sea regions which your naval invasion is going to pass through. For your fleet, the best order you want to put them on is naval invasion support, as your capital ships will provide a shore bombardment bonus to your invasion, which is going to just increase your chances even more. However, if you don't want your navy to move out and potentially be engaged by the enemy, you can also put them on strike force, and that way they'll still project naval supremacy, but they won't move out of the port once the invasion launches. Just be aware, you might lose all your divisions. Another thing to note is you can only set up 10 naval invasions at a time at the beginning of the game, unless you either research the landing craft tech, or in the officer corps, get the tip of the spear spirit if you're going down the grand battle plan doctrine. This can actually be a really handy way of increasing your naval invasion capacity early in the game before you are able to research that technology. Speaking of which, this naval invasion tech also allows you to build floating harbours, which act as a temporary supply hub if you're landing somewhere without a port. So it's always prudent to use these if you have them. You can do so by setting up the naval invasion just as normal, except selecting the naval invasion order with floating harbour support instead. Now, back to the demonstration, you can see that this is just going to take a ridiculous amount of time to prepare. A much better way of setting up this invasion is going to be selecting 1 or 2 divisions at a time, and then setting up the naval invasion bit by bit. It takes a bit more micro to do it this way, like you're manually setting up a lot more orders. But once you have them ready to go, you can see that the amount of preparation time has been cut down significantly. And if we actually hit play here, you can see that all of the naval invasions prepare at the same time. Now, in terms of strategy, even with the floating harbour support, you still want to prioritize securing a port when you land your naval invasions. So, for example, this spot here is a really good place to naval invade Mexico, as they have 2 ports right next to each other. So we've got double the chance of potentially securing one. So when I'm setting up my naval invasion, I'll want to put the majority of my forces targeting those 2 ports. So here I've got 4 divisions on a naval invasion order to attack each port. Now what I'm also going to do is take a smaller amount of divisions and have them land on either side of those ports that we're trying to target. The AI is much less likely to defend these random coastal tiles than they are to defend the provinces where the ports are. So the idea is, while we're fighting a battle to try and take the ports, we can land on either side of them with our other divisions, run around and encircle them, cutting them off from supply and giving us a better chance of winning that battle. Now the naval invasion is all set up, it will plan much faster and it's much better planned out. It does require a little bit of micro when you land in terms of ordering your divisions around, but just pop your game on 2 or 3 speed if you struggle with it, and then you're going to have a much easier time of it. Also, be sure to let your naval invasions plan fully before you declare on a nation. That way you can launch it straight away once you declare, and the enemy has less chance to move their divisions where you don't want them to be. Also, make sure that your navy is active before you declare war and send the naval invasion off. There's this little bug in the game sometimes where even if you may not have naval supremacy, for example, if you've only got 50 ships against a 100 fleet enemy, sometimes the game will recognize that you've got that brief moment of naval supremacy at the very beginning of the war and launch your naval invasion then. So try that trick out and see if it works for you. Anyway, our naval invasion's prepared. Our navy is active, so let's declare war on Mexico. Now, if we press play, you can see that the fact that the arrows on the orders are moving means that we have met all the conditions needed. So the invasion is planned, we have the naval supremacy, and we can see that our boats are moved over, and we've instantly landed. Well, I mean, we've taken the port anyway, but yeah, theoretically, we could basically move our divisions around the outside to secure that port. We don't need to in this case because I'm so good at the game, but now we have a new front set up that we can put them on a new order and just basically have them run through to Mexico City. Next, we have our Mountaineers. Use them to defend and attack in mountain ranges. There's not that much to it. The combat width in mountains is 75, so for your template, go for something that's around 25 width. There's honestly not much to these ones, so we won't dwell on them, but a template like this is going to be pretty effective. Now for one of the most fun unit types in the game, Paratroopers. Much like we see in Band of Brothers, these guys are basically bred to be dropped behind enemy lines and practically sacrificed.
Looks like you guys are going to be surrounded.
We're paratroopers, Lieutenant. We're supposed to be surrounded.
So it's not really worth putting a lot of equipment into your designs. There's two main philosophies with Paratroopers. You can either make a half-decent division, which you expect to kind of survive and hold out for a little while your main front line catches up with them, or there is the Spammer Trooper method, which is a single battalion of Paratroopers. You drop as many of them as humanly possible behind the front lines to create chaos and disorder. These are usually banned in multiplayer, but hey, there's no rules against it in single player. To use your Paratroopers, you just set up an order much like you would with your Marines. Using the Paratroop order, after you've selected your divisions, you just left click on the airport that they're going to depart from, and then right click on the province where you want them to land. You can see here that the range of your Paratroopers is limited by the range of the transport planes, which you also need to be able to run a paradrop operation. You're going to need a ratio of 50 transport planes per division, as well as 70% air supremacy in all the regions that your paradrop mission is going to go through. So for example, if you are going to try and paradrop from Calais here into London, you are going to need air supremacy in northern France, the English Channel, and southern England. The range of your Paratroopers is limited to the range of the transport planes, so you won't be dropping into Berlin from Washington DC or anything like that, but the size that they have is still pretty respectable. Then again, it's not the size that matters, but how you use it, so try to spread out your drop zone to maximize efficiency. A good strategy here is to go after the enemy supply hubs and railway lines to cut off their supply, and try not to drop them more than 1 or 2 provinces away from where the front line is, so that way you actually have a chance of linking up your supply lines and saving them. There's no planning time for these missions, so once you hit the go button, they'll pretty much teleport to where they need to go. You can see here that not all of our Paratroopers actually went, and that's because we don't have enough transport planes in this airport to carry our whole army at once. These other guys, if we unpause, will be launched on their mission once these transport planes return to the airport, pick them up and bring them back. Another tip for you as well, once your Paratroopers have all landed, take those same transport planes, pop them on the air supply mission and put them in the region where your Paratroopers are. That'll just give them a little bit of supply and allow them to fight a little bit longer. Also, if you're finding that your Paratroop missions aren't launching for whatever reason, just double check that you don't have those transport planes on the air supply mission, as that's going to make them not able to launch your Paratroopers. Your special forces are already superior to your standard troops, but there are a few things that you can do to make them even better. When making your templates, be sure to give them the elite equipment priority, so that way they're getting the best and brightest of the new equipment that you have, which is going to make them more effective. You can also recruit an advisor with the commando trait, as that's going to increase your special forces attack and defense. While you're at it, don't forget to have a dedicated general for your special forces and give them the best trait for the type of units that you're using. And finally, as simple as it sounds, just make sure to exercise your divisions before using them. Get them up to at least level 3, as that's going to give them a 25% bonus to combat. The logic is you've already got a bunch of bonuses on these units, so you want to take advantage of that, not limit yourself by deploying green Marines or green Paratroopers. Well, that's it for today, but I hope this helped you out, and if it did, please like the video and let me know in the comments which type of bender you would be. I'd be a waterbender, as staying hydrated is a core part of my personality. Anyway, thanks so much for watching, check out some of my other videos, and I'll see you in the next one. As I said before, the range of your Paratroopers is limited. To... You're going to need a ratio of 50 transport plane...